Hello, everybody! Greetings, book lovers everywhere, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I am E-Train. I'm a 13-year-old literacy advocate, podcast host, and book lover. And in case you didn't know, I am a huge advocate for reading. And of course, my pride and joy sharing diverse books. Diverse books celebrate our unique superpowers of being kind, of being empathetic, of being accepting. And they teach kids that anyone can be a superhero in so many different ways, whether you actually have superpowers. I don't know if any of you here have superpowers, but I do know one superpower that everybody I'm talking with today has. It has the power of writing and sharing stories. And speaking of superheroes, in today's show, I'm bringing together the Avengers, or I guess in our case, the Maccabees, of some very special Rosh Hashanah storytelling superheroes. They're authors, they're illustrators, they're beyond, and they are responsible for crafting some Jewish New Year storytime favorites. 4 Rosh Hashanah themed books crafted for young readers from preschool to middle school, and 5 of their creators. That's right, today I have the honor of speaking with a panel of amazing award-winning children's authors and their sweet books. Sitting across from me today virtually is Richard Ho, Barbara Bietz, and June Sobel, as well as Annette Schottenfeld and Dori Weinstein. So I'm so excited. I mean, I'm through the moon. I mean, I don't even know if that's the right expression. I'm just so excited. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm excited to share your holiday-themed stories and give everybody tuning in some insight into your writing journeys. So, this is our Rosh Hashanah Roundup, and on that note, let's dive into the Jewish holiday, Jewish New Year spirit. So, my first question for all of you is sort of to get us into the groove and help everyone learn more about you and the meaningful work that you've accomplished and forged when it comes to Rosh Hashanah tales. So, can each of you, I have a little bit of a sort of order that we can go with, first on my screen to last. So, something like that. So can you share your book, hold it up, tell us your name, and a little bit about your Rosh Hashanah story, including what age range your book is geared towards, why you wrote it, and who the publisher is, and of course, anything else you want to share. So, first on my screen is Annette.
Hi, my name is Annette Schottenfeld. I'm a children's book author, and I've written Not So Fast Max. Oh, you have it also. Rosh Hashanah Visit with Grandma, published by Kalani Oat Books. And I'm so happy to be here today. A little background. Thank you. I'm passionate about the environment, dance, and writing for children because I feel all of these things can change the life of children. Not So Fast Max, a Rosh Hashanah Visit with Grandma, takes place as Max and Emily's spunky grandma, Savta, comes from Israel for a Rosh Hashanah visit. She's promised them that they're going to be making caramel apples, but first she's got some surprises up her sleeve as they go apple picking. Now, Max just wants to get going already and get started making the treats. But along the way, he learns some cool things about Savta and that new traditions can be worth the wait. So this picture book is for young readers aged 4 to 8. And I wrote this story as a fun way for children to become familiar with the elements of Rosh Hashanah, the round challah, dipping apples in honey, the shofar, and slowing down to reflect on the past year. New Hebrew words such as tapuhim, which are apples, and savta, which is grandma, are also introduced, and additional themes of mindfulness and identifying how someone feels. You can see this, Max's different expressions on his face make it universal for all children. And thank you, E-Train, for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be a part of this panel. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And Not So Fast Max, it's an incredible book. I mean, all the stories here today that are going to be shared are fantastic. They're lovable. And next on my screen is Dori.
Oh, I'm so used to being last because I'm Weinstein.
Oh, yeah.
That was for me. Okay, hi. I'm Dori Weinstein. I'm sorry, the video is not great.
It's okay. No worries.
Okay, anyway, I am the author of Sliding into the New Year. It is a chapter book for kids in, well, I'd say ages 8 through 11. And it's part of the, I've got all of them here to show you. It's part of the Yayan Yo-Yo series. I'm currently working on the 5th one. Each one goes month by month through the year. And I decided to start the series with Rosh Hashanah, because it seemed like a good time to start, beginning of the new year, the Jewish New Year, and beginning of school. And I started writing these books, actually probably around the year you were born, E-Train, because I was actually volunteering at a book fair at my kids' preschool, and they had a table of, it was at our synagogue, and they had a table of Jewish books, and they asked me if I would set them up. And so they asked me to do the picture books and the older kid books, and all of them were amazing picture books. Fabulous, wonderful, so many. For the older kids, literally what I got to put up that day were books about the Holocaust, books about Anne Frank, biographies. There was one book about like Fiddler on the Rooftop, Shtetl. And so I was like, you know what? We need books for older kids that are not picture books, but that go into the meaning and the importance and what we love about Rosh Hashanah and all the Jewish holidays and what we love about being Jewish. So, and you asked, and you asked about who the publisher is. So originally, this was the original version of Sliding into the New Year. I was with a small indie press called Yotzeret, and they're out of business now. And now I'm actually doing it on my own. I've created my own press called Five Flames Press. And so
Wow.
I viewed in that way. So I'm sure there's more to say, but there'll be more questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. And now next on my screen is Richard.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, E-Train. I'm so excited to be here with all these amazing authors. This is my book, Two New Years, illustrated by Lynn Scurfield, and it's published by Chronicle Books. It's loosely based on my family. It's a family that celebrates both Rosh Hashanah and also the Lunar New Year. So it has a lot of the customs that myself, growing up Chinese in the U.S., the things that my family used to do for Lunar New Year, but also when I converted to Judaism in my 20s, I was starting to pick up a lot of the customs of Judaism. And so the Rosh Hashanah customs that I learned, I've been incorporating into my own life. And after I got married and we had kids, my kids are now growing up with a blend of both customs, which I found really beautiful. And I wanted to write a book about that. It's a picture book, so it's for ages 4 to 8. And it's just really a great way for kids to see blending of cultures and customs in their own lives.
That's so amazing. And I love seeing dual representation, multiple representations in picture books. I think it's so important. And now, last but certainly not least, I mean, I don't know what order you two want to go in because you're together. So, I mean, maybe
we'll just talk over each other. We work well together.
So we have Barbara and June.
Hi, this is our first book we've written together, Apples, Apples All Year Round. And this started out as sort of our COVID project. We hadn't seen each other, but in the back of our minds, we always wanted to write something together. So we created this book basically through Zoom calls and over the phone. Mm-hmm. And to our surprise and thrill, we ended up winning the prize, the PJ Library Incentive. What is it? The incentive? Mm-hmm. This incentive award. And this book was published 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, Apples and Honey's Press. And the wonderful thing is, I feel I'm an author of several children's book series, most notably The Goodnight Train, that's published by HarperCollins. And I've never collaborated. And this, for both of us, has been just such a wonderful journey and a nice counterpoint to writing alone.
And it's for the very young. That was our goal, was to write something to introduce the joys of Jewish life to really young readers. And for us, it starts out with the new year. So we start out with celebrating apples and honey for the new year. And then just to read a bit, apples, apples, sweet new year, apples dipped in honey. So the book actually takes you in very sort of sparse, accessible language, takes you through the whole Jewish calendar. And our goal was to start out with that joy and sweetness of the new year with the apples and honey and carry that throughout the year.
And one of the wonderful kind of side effects of having written this book is we've heard from parents, and this book is also for children who don't talk or speak. And we've had stories of parents, kids who have maybe 10 words, and they suddenly say apples, apples, and they bring this book to their parents to read. So I think that's just one of the joys of writing this sort of book.
I love that. I love that so much. So thank you all of you for sharing. And, when it comes to holidays, no matter what culture or ethnicity you're from, we always have traditions. And with Rosh Hashanah, I got my apple here. I love to dip apples in honey, cut the apple slices. There's so many different traditions, and seeing your family, it's so wonderful. And I mean, it wouldn't be a holiday without traditions. It couldn't be a holiday without traditions. So throughout Rosh Hashanah and the high holy days, traditions have emerged of all kinds. So can all of you share a special Rosh Hashanah tradition from your past or your present, or maybe one you want to start in the future if you don't have one currently? And I guess we can just start maybe opposite order. So now Barbara and Gina first.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I'll start. My favorite tradition is Tashlik. And it's not something I actually grew up with, but I learned more about as an adult having my own kids. And Tashlik is when you go typically as a community to a body of water and you throw in breadcrumbs that kind of represent your regrets or the difficult things that you had experienced throughout the year. And to me, it's just so meaningful to gather with your community and your loved ones and to have this kind of cleansing experience, but at the same time being with community. So throughout the high holy days, Tashlik is definitely the part that really touches me deeply.
And for me, apples and honey and the round challah have always been part of our past tradition. But since my son is married to a Chinese woman, I hope my future grandchildren will be reading Richard's book, Two New Years.
Love it.
That makes me really happy, obviously.
So yeah, and
speaking of the book, they loved it.
And speaking of Richard, it's your turn.
Yeah, so I think there is so much about holidays that center around food, and I think we can all agree that food is amazing and a perfect way to get into a lot of the themes of holidays. And for me, one of my favorite parts of Rosh Hashanah is on the first night during the meal, we have what's called simanim, which in Hebrew means signs. And so that includes the apple and the honey, because so each of the foods that we have some sort of symbolic meaning that sort of speaks to one of the themes of the holidays. So apples and honey, because they're both sweet, we are wishing each other a sweet new year. So that's a classic, and everybody loves that. There's other ones that I also love. We have pomegranates, because the seeds of the pomegranate, there's so many of these seeds, and they represent the merits or the mitzvahs that we hope to do in the new year. So things like that. Also, there's one that's less savory is the fish head, and I know a lot of families have an actual fish head, and it's some people eat them, some people don't. But like for us, we actually just use the candy fish, like the little Swedish fish jellies, and we just cut the heads off, and the kids. A little bit morbid, but yeah, those are the things that it's great because it gets the kids into it. It's fun, it's tasty, but it also is a great way to teach about the themes of the holiday.
I love it. And next we have Dori.
First of all, we do the head thing too. I'm so happy you said that. And we sing fish heads at Passover when we pass around the gefilte fish. That's a whole other song. You might ask about songs, and I have a song for you. Anyway, I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to focus on. I figured I'll put one in that really isn't out there, which is in the book. The Rabbi Green, who is their teacher, teaches them about tshuva, which is turning ourselves around. And in particular, it's a Hebrew word, and it's teshuvah or tshuva. And Ellie, who's one of the main characters, mishears it as shoebox. It's a whole thing. And so they start a family tradition where they write down on a piece of paper all their mistakes and all the things that they are not happy about and how they want to change and do tshuva and put it in a shoebox. So we haven't done that in our family, but we've talked about it. And I do actually know some kids who did, after reading the book, started doing that, which just was, I made it up and it just kind of took off. So that was kind of exciting. So I'll go with that as my family tradition, even though it's not my family tradition. It's the Silver family tradition.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to start doing that. I mean, all these traditions, some I've personally practiced, but shoebox, I guess I can understand
not paying attention in class.
Yeah. And now we have Annette.
Yeah, I love hearing all about all of your traditions, and that we all have something a little bit different that strikes us. As a young girl, I remember eating homemade apple cake on Rosh Hashanah. And to me, that signified the start of the new year. So once I had my own children, and being that I'm a registered dietitian, I altered the recipe a little bit to make it a little bit healthier, but still tasty. And that's what we have every year now at Rosh Hashanah. I put together with my daughter a family, you could see it's very well worn, cookbook, and now and included that recipe in there. So now even our extended family makes what's become known as the apple cake as a tradition for all of our Rosh Hashanah meals. And then another fun fact is that recently I had an opportunity to sit down with Savannah Guthrie, who's the host on NBC's Today Show. And I was telling her that about this recipe, which is actually also in the back of Not So Fast Max. And she thought that was a great idea. Her husband happens to be Jewish. And so she asked me for the recipe. Even though she's not a baker, it's an easy recipe to make. And hopefully she'll start incorporating that now into her holiday meals as well. And I wish you were here, but I have an apple cake.
Oh,
I have the opportunity. So this is what it looks like. And my husband's excited to partake afterwards. But so apple cake is our tradition.
You know, I was a little bit scared of asking this question because I'm now really hungry. So hopefully after this, I'll probably indulge myself in an apple cake or something at least. Because you're really getting me into this holiday spirit. I hope all of you who are watching, hopefully you don't click off and start eating some food. But also, I love that you mentioned that there are recipes in many of the Rosh Hashanah and a lot of Jewish picture books because food is so big in our culture and really every culture. So, it's really special when it's really interactive after you read this book, maybe with your own kid, maybe as an adult. You can also share the experience a little bit longer and maybe create one of these delicious dishes. So when it comes to writing, I've heard that inspiration can be found anywhere. So I'm really anxious to know what first inspired or motivated your Rosh Hashanah stories and adventures, all the tales that your characters go on, and what was the motivation in the first place. And now we're looping back around, and now Annette is starting.
Yeah, I agree that story ideas can come from anywhere. And when I speak to young readers, I explain that to them and try to help spark their interest in writing stories and creating stories of their own. The idea for Not So Fast Max began when my children were younger, and each fall we would go apple picking, and their grandma would come along and start telling us stories about when she was a child. And this became a tradition. And I remembered those special days, and this inspired me to capture those moments and share them with readers. And that's how Not So Fast Max got started.
I love it. I love hearing that story. I love hearing the origins of these tales. And next is Dori.
So when I was a kid, I was an avid reader. I was not quite as much as you, because I didn't have a whole podcast or anything. We didn't have podcasts back then. But I was a huge reader, and I had two favorite books / authors. My favorite author of all time was Judy Blume, who was Jewish, or is Jewish, she's still alive, and also wrote. Her characters, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them were Jewish and kind of did things similar to stuff that I was doing. That's number one. And number two, I have a favorite series, which I'm sure you've all heard of, which is All of a Kind Family by Sydney Taylor. And she had a whole series, and I, of course, read all of them multiple times. And so in my head, I was kind of after going to this book fair and getting the inspiration for where are the older kid books, I said, there should be books that are fun and contemporary, like Judy Blume's books, that kind of have kids of today that mirror who they are and that celebrate Jewish culture and Jewish heritage, like in All of a Kind Family. But All of a Kind Family took place in the early 1900s. So it was fun to read about the history, but it certainly didn't reflect who I was at the time. And then my kids, who are now grown, were reading lots of different series, like Ginny B. Jones and Magic Tree House. And I was like, that would be really cool if there was a Jewish book series, kind of like Judy Blume meets All of a Kind Family. So that was my inspiration.
I love that. I love that so much. And now we have Richard.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned a little bit before that the family in Two New Years is loosely based on my family. So you'll see that there is it's a mother and a father and a son and a daughter. It's not exactly my family because my family we have 4 boys, so a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I think I wanted to create a story. This is the first book that I published. It's the 4th book, but it's the first one with Jewish content, and I wanted to, for my first Jewish book, have something that really gets to this blending of customs and traditions and lifestyles that my kids are growing up with. Because as I watch them grow up, I see that all the things that I had to consciously put together as far as like synthesizing 2 different sets of customs, for them it was completely natural. It was something that they just grew up with. This is like this is their life. You know, it's this sort of beautiful blend of 2 different cultures, and so when it came time to put this book together, I originally started off thinking that I wanted to do a sort of side-by-side comparison of the year for both Jewish and Chinese traditions. And then I quickly realized that was way too ambitious. You know, like there's too much to do there. That would have been a huge book. That wouldn't be a picture book. So I zeroed in on the idea of the New Year, because every culture universally has a way to celebrate the New Year, and so much of what other cultures do is similar to what both of these cultures do, as far as renewal and putting aside the past and looking forward to the future and wishing everybody good fortune. Those are all things that resonate with not only with Jewish and Chinese New Year, but all New Years across the world. So that was really the idea behind this book, is to do something that you don't have to be Chinese, you don't have to be Jewish to understand, like the beauty of taking different cultures and finding diversity and inclusion in all of the stories that we have.
I love it. Now I love that you talked about representation. I love that. And I mean, I'm saying I love that a lot, but because all of your answers are so fantastic. And now, last but certainly not least, at least for this question, is June Sobel and Barbara Bietz. So, I mean, again, you can kind of. Do you want to go first? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's okay. We're good. We'll sort of
go back and forth
together.
Yeah.
So initially, the idea of the book of celebrating apples throughout the years came from my daughter, who had said quite a while ago, there's apples in almost every Jewish holiday. So when June and I were sort of brainstorming, because we knew we wanted to do this project together, I said, what about apples? And we just started playing with the idea. And although that was kind of the symbol of inspiration, the seed. The seed. She provided us with that seed of inspiration. I think we were also inspired by our friendship, by the idea of gathering throughout the holidays. And I think our illustrator has done a really sweet idea with her animal friends and making them gathering and celebrating holidays together. So I think we were inspired by a number of things, from the idea to our friendship, to celebrations throughout the year. And what else inspired you?
Well, the other thing is, I love the idea of writing for the very young. And these are books that are really read to by parents or caregivers or teachers. And just, once again, kind of planting the seed of concepts of Judaism. I mean, it's really, I've done several events with PJ libraries where, young mothers and their children, like under 3, come. And, I'd say almost 70% of these women are not Jewish. And by having a book, and they want to incorporate Jewish traditions in their family life. And this book, this simple book, has just really resonated with them because they're learning along with their children.
Right. And also a quick shout out to PJ Library. We love you.
We love PJ Library.
I probably have 100 PJ Library books in my library, and PJ Our Way too. I grow up with these books, and
yeah.
So we've talked a lot about hope and joy, but there's also, being Jewish in, I guess, the 21st century, in the world that we live in today. It can be difficult. And I've experienced a lot of anti-Semitism. I experienced so much that I had to leave schools. I mean, I'm in middle school. These are kids that are doing this. So, I guess, anti-Semitism continues to be on the rise in both, middle school environments, which is just shocking to say, but also just in general. And sharing your stories, it's so important in this day and age. We got to get more eyes and hands on Jewish stories so people can learn about our wonderful culture. And I'm curious, do you have any experience getting Jewish books on the shelves of public schools and libraries? And have you seen that there is any rise in that or fall? And do you think there are enough Jewish books on shelves? And I guess now we got to loop our way back around because now June and Barbara are starting.
Oh. Well, I personally, I mean, obviously I know, and I've heard so many stories, and I'm so sorry that this is something that's affected you so personally. And I think that in the Jewish children's book world, we support each other a lot, and we have wonderful organizations like PJ Library that support the work that we do. For me personally, I can look at the world around me, and of course, my heart's always in so many different places. But in terms of the work that we do, I think it's just like you said, E-Train, we've just got to keep doing the work because that's what we can contribute. We can show the joy that we know Jewish life brings us, and we can support one another, and we can keep writing the stories in spite of what might be going on around us that is harmful or hurtful. I feel like that's our job. That's what we've been tasked with. And sometimes you wonder, is it enough? But it is, because it's what we can do. If that makes sense.
Our small part, and I'll just echo everything Barbara said. I mean, this book, we don't really have anything to do with getting the books placed out in the world. So it's not our thing.
Yeah. So I love your answer. And next up, we have Richard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think one thing that we've found over the past year or so within the publishing world is, unfortunately, anti-Semitism is there too. And not necessarily overt anti-Semitism, but I think maybe a lack of support or a lack of allyship. And I think that's a problem that we're all struggling with. It's harder to get Jewish stories published, I think, by the mainstream publishers these days. That being said, I think there are definitely stories being acquired and produced. And the fact that Two New Years is published by Chronicle, which is not a Jewish publisher, I think that's a sign of things where within the publishers, there's still this desire to get the Jewish stories out there and to show a side of Judaism that isn't what you see in the news. And I think so much of what we see in the news is very politically charged, and it's very sad and it's very tragic. And all of these things are contributing to this overall feeling of, like Jews sort of being isolated and put into the spotlight in ways that we don't want. Right. I think as authors and as creators, it's our job to show the world that there is Jewish joy in these stories, and that's where the focus should be. Because kids out there, Jewish kids who are reading these stories, they might not be aware of what's going on in the broader world to the extent that adults are, and I think it's important for them to still have this source of stories that shows them why it's amazing to be Jewish, and I think that's our job, is to produce those stories and to create them. And at the end of the day, hopefully, like that is shining a light on these stories, and our people and our lifestyle is what we contribute to the world at this point.
Jewish joy. There's so much of it, and it's so important to share it and spread it. Spread the message all around. And now, next up is Dori.
So I want to say I'm so sorry that you personally have been dealing with this. That just breaks my heart. We've all kind of been affected in one way or another, obviously. And for me, like, I'm on the other end of June and Barbara, where it's all on me, because I'm not with a publishing house and I'm doing it all on my own now. So my inspiration originally was to reach Jewish kids, to teach Jewish kids and let them have books out there that are not just sad and not just about our history, but who we are today. So, but I do know that my books are in some public schools, because that was your question, and, in some public libraries. Most of my reach has been through word of mouth. And I know for sure the local public libraries here have them. I don't know how far out they go. But I will say, like, I did try to use like universal, like the story in the first one is about a water park. I mean, who doesn't love water parks except for me? I hate water parks, but my kids love water parks. And that was, so I kind of was trying to find universal things that would not just appeal to Jewish kids, but to any kid who happens to want to learn about another culture and another, lifestyle as well. So yeah, they're out there, and I'm hoping that things like this, like a podcast, will let more people know about it, to learn about, because we all need to learn about each other, and not just stay insular.
Absolutely.
And I'm a Richard's book for that very reason.
That's a great answer. So, and now, last but certainly not least, we have Annette.
Sure. And first, E-Train, I'm really sorry for what you've gone through. And it's good, though, for you to voice that, because I think there's a lot of other children or young adults out there that have experienced the same thing. And so they know they're not alone. And I do also echo what all of the other creatives here had said about what's going on in the writing world now. And that we do have to just keep plugging ahead. I live just outside of New York City on Long Island, and I have found when I've approached local libraries, they have been very welcoming to add my book, Not So Fast Max, to their catalog. So I'm lucky in that sense. But I think possibly a way for us to support other authors and illustrators is to go to our local libraries and request their books, Jewish or not, and then review them and post on social media. And if we try to highlight the Jewish aspects, but also the non-Jewish layers of friendship, taking care of the world around us, things like that, it shows that these books are also universal, and hopefully they'll be more widely accepted. And we just do our little part to keep chipping away.
Right.
Certainly,
Yeah, it's a great answer. And I love what you said about, repairing the world, tikkun olam. I mean, that's probably my favorite idea, my favorite theme, I guess, of Judaism. Tikkun olam, repairing our world, and the stories that you're creating, the tales that you're telling, that is, you're doing your part to repair the world. And we can do it big or small. It's my message. And all of you watching, do your part, whether big or small. We can make a big difference. And now, moving past themes of anti-Semitism, Judaism is full of hopeful music and songs. Richard was talking about Jewish joy, and there's so much of it. And this Jewish New Year, it's no different. It's a joyous time when we dip our apples in honey. We wish for a sweet, coming year. And today, while the hills themselves aren't alive with the sound of music, this interview was alive with the sound of music. And so I'm curious, can you all share your favorite Jewish songs, whether from holidays or prayers? Can you start us off, Annette?
Sure. A song that has meaning for me is Eliyahu Hanavi, and it's a beautiful song, and it's sung at the end of Havdalah, and it helps us prepare for the week ahead, and reminds us to aim for a world that includes peace, kindness, and fairness. And I think that's something that we could all use, especially right now. So I just love the melody, and it just kind of renews me at the start of each week.
I love it. Eliyahu Hanavi is one of my favorite songs, one of my favorite prayers. And now we have Dori.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. My song is just a song. It's not really a prayer. It's not really from a holiday, but one of my favorite songs is Naomi Shemer's Al Hadvash V'Al Ha'oketz. It's about the bitter and the sweet. And that's life. Everything's a balance. I mean, we're feeling it right now. There's so much joy, and there's also a lot of hard things going on. So I hope you don't mind that I'm cheating. I didn't specifically a holiday, but that is one of my, first of all, it's a beautiful song. And also it really is the balance of life. There's bitter, there's sweet, there's difficult, there's easy. It's all of it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's a great answer. And now we have Richard.
Yeah, there was no cheating here. I think there's so much music all across Judaism. There's in the prayers, there's in the holidays, there's popular music, and I think that's amazing. My favorite, I would have to say, is it's a zemer, or a song that we sing on Shabbat. It's called Karibon. And it's just the way that these songs go is that traditionally they've been sung at meals on Shabbat, and there are many alternate tunes to each one, and so a lot of people will just have a favorite tune for each song. And there's a specific tune for Karibon that is just amazing, and it's not a very well known one, but I heard it one time, and it's never let go of my brain. So it's my favorite song, I would say, for singing or listening to, or it gets me into the mood of Shabbat, which is like about resting at the end of the week and appreciating all of the things that have been created in the world, and just enjoying being with families. So that's the one that speaks to me the most.
Are you going to leave us singing? I want to hear it.
You know what? I don't think people would appreciate my singing, so I'm gonna beg off on this one. But absolutely, look it up. Go on the internet and look it up. It's worth it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And now we have June and Barbara.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to give you a specific song, but my favorite songs are Hanukkah songs, because my son was born the first night of Hanukkah. So I feel we put this extraordinary focus on Hanukkah because he was the best gift I ever received.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, my favorite is actually Debbie Friedman's Miriam song. Miriam and her timbrels. It's a song that we always sang, and on Passover, I always like to give an extra nod to Miriam. I think she's kind of an unsung hero, and as a sister, I think her role is so vital. And on our Passover Seder, I actually line the table with tambourines, and we do our own little celebration of Miriam. And it's just, to me, it's a joyful song, and I'm often caught singing it even when it's not Passover. So that's my choice.
These are all amazing answers. And now you're adding to my, to be heard. I mean, people talk about to be read list, but this is my to be listened to be added to my playlists, because these are fantastic songs. And now it's very sad because we're at the last question of the interview, and I have loved talking with all of you today. I'm so grateful that you took time to talk. But this is a question that I have been really excited to ask. I've never been able to ask it before. But I mean, we have a Jewish author panel here, so why not ask this question? If you could meet one Jewish person in history, I mean, it could be a Jewish person, like Albert Einstein. Hopefully that wasn't your answer. Or it could also be a Jewish character in a book that you read, maybe a subtle mention of Judaism, or a purely Jewish book with a Jewish character. I mean, that's it could go all over the place, because there are so many amazing Jewish people, both fictional and real. So who would it be and why? I know I'm rambling a lot with that question, but hopefully you got it a little bit. So, and now we're starting off with June and Barbara. Kick us off. What are your answers?
Well, my person is not someone historical, but it would be my great-grandfather, David Kupritz, who was a rabbi in Odessa, Russia. Wow. And his wife, they had 7 children, and his wife died in childbirth with twins. And several years later, they left Odessa. He left alone with 7 children to start to immigrate to the United States. And I would just love to have spoken to him. And apparently he met like Theodore Herzl. He's a very interesting person. But one of the most fascinating stories I heard about this family is before they left, a kindly Cossack came to their apartment, and he said, "I'm going to pretend to beat you up near the window." And they just pantomimed, and he said, "Scream, scream." And right after that, they escaped.
Wow.
So I would love to have met him.
That's an amazing answer.
I know.
It sounds like a book. I think that is
nothing like a family story.
Yeah.
For me, I was torn. I actually would rather have a whole dinner party so I could fill a table with people, but we had to choose. So I chose something that's not family, but very personal. My choice is the author Sydney Taylor she's the author of the All of a Kind family books. And I think those those books were so pivotal for me as a child, reading about Jewish holidays, reading about a family. Those girls were my friends. And so much so that when I grew up and heard that other people read those books too, I almost felt a little possessive. Like, wait, what do you mean that's your favorite book? Those are my books. So her influence in my life was so significant, starting from when I was a child. And then years later, I actually served on the Sidney Taylor Book Award Committee. So it was very like full circle for me of the impact of her legacy on my life. So because it just feels so very personal, Sidney Taylor's my choice.
That is a fantastic answer. And you're all authors here, so a bookish answer, we love it. So now we have Richard. Who is your Jewish person you'd like to meet?
I have to say, E-Train, it was Einstein. You took my answer.
I have
a backup. I have a backup. No, so Einstein, originally I was thinking, because so much of what he represents is like getting at the pursuit of truth in the universe. And I think that's such a Jewish idea, whether it's religiously or spiritually or educationally, like that to me was just a cool confluence of this Jewish figure who was able to add so much knowledge to the world. So that's why I was ready to pick him. But my backup is also great, Steven Spielberg, because
that's a good one.
Great one.
Just what he's done, not just with the movies, like with Schindler's List and things like that, but with recording the interviews with Holocaust survivors. I think it's such an important thing to do to preserve that history and that legacy. And I love that it's somebody who's so influential and so important in the world of stories that he's one of ours and like has been able to preserve so many Jewish stories over the course of the years. So I'll go with Spielberg.
That is a fantastic answer. I'm sorry for stealing Albert Einstein.
It's okay. It's okay.
But Steven Spielberg is an inspiration of mine, an inspiration for so many, and that's a perfect answer. So now we have Dori.
All right, so this stinks going after everybody because now I want to invite my great-grandfather, who was a rabbi who came over from Europe, and I want to invite Sidney Taylor and Judy Blume to my dinner also. But the answer that I actually thought of, which again, I was like, it's cheating, but I guess maybe it's not, is my mom, because my mom died when I was 22, actually a week before I turned 22. And she was a librarian, and she's the one who got me to love books. And she would be so happy and so proud. I'm going to cry to know about what I'm doing now. And every book is in her memory. And hopefully I'm reaching so many children and her spirit is reaching them as well. I'm going to stop now because I am going to cry.
That is such a lovely answer. I love that.
Thank
and
you.
now we have Annette.
First, Dori, what a wonderful tribute to your mom, and I'm sure she is very proud.
Thank you.
She is. I know she is.
A Jewish person that I wish I could sit down and learn more about and from is Michael Baron, who was a Holocaust survivor, and he grew up in a shtetl in Lithuania. After the Nazis invaded when he was a teenager, he managed a daring escape and even crossed enemy lines trekking on skis through mountains to capture Nazi officers. When the war ended, he married the love of his life, Millie. And once they got visas, they came over to the States and lived in New York. He taught in New York schools, and he also taught Yiddish and Jewish culture at a summer camp upstate New York, Camp Kindering, which I went to. And he was just an amazing person. He retired from the camp at age 95.
Wow.
Teaching there, was beloved by thousands of campers over the years. They would all quietly sit. We used to sit in the pagoda by the lake and listen to his stories, and he would share his wisdom and messages of tzedakah and acceptance, and just the respect that these young campers gave him, and they really all looked up to him almost as a grandfatherly figure. I know each one of them took a piece of that back home at the end of the summer and he was just a really incredible person. He passed away, unfortunately, in 2020 at the age of 97. So even though I had met him, I would love to just sit and glean more information. And it's just a positive, really unbelievable person. So
Other book.
That's a beautiful answer. Well, I mean, thank you all for sharing, and I mean, you're gonna make me cry because those are so fantastic, and so sweet. I feel like I also, I would pick my great grandfather. He didn't really fight against. Oh, he didn't. He was. I don't really know a ton about him. I do, but I feel like I don't at the same time. I never got to meet him. But like from what my mom describes him as, I think he immigrated from. He. Sorry, I'm stuttering a lot, but like, so he immigrated from Poland, I believe when he was 6 or 7 years old. And from what I've heard in stories about him, he was always kind. He was always loving. He loved his family with all of his heart. And, my middle name I'm named after him. Oscar is his name. Oscar is my middle name. So there's a little secret E-Train info. So, he's just somebody that I'd always love to talk to, even just for 1 second, and just tell him that I love him, and I know that he loves me. So, also Albert Einstein would be my second one. I think also the stories that I've heard about him are so interesting. I mean, he was even asked to be the first president of Israel, the first prime minister, and he's just such a fascinating person. And I mean, I've got to say, speaking of fascinating, this has been such a memorable talk, and I've loved talking with all of you. So first, before we go, can all of you hold up your books, and so I can get like a little bit of a group picture? Sure. All right. 3, 2, 1. I think I messed that up. That's the wrong button. All right. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I got it. All right. Perfect. Thank you. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Your answers were fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. Thank you for putting up with any mistakes that I made. All of your answers. Your answers are amazing, and I've loved learning more about you, your stories, and I'm grateful to have the chance to share and celebrate your outstanding work with everybody watching, and of course celebrate the beautiful holiday Rosh Hashanah with all of you. And Shana Tova Umetsuka, everybody. Have a very sweet New Year, and whether you celebrate or not, I hope that whatever holiday you celebrate, whatever, even Rosh Hashanah, you might not celebrate it, but I hope that specific day and the days beyond are always going to be full of joy for all of you. And thank you again, everybody. To find out more about
it's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So today, if you want to find more about all the authors that I've talked to today, you can check out their contact information in the description below. I don't have their phone numbers, but they have websites. Yeah, they have websites that you can go on. I'll also link to their social media so you can learn more and contact them, or just, check out more of their stories through there. And thank you again to everybody watching, to everybody here. I'm so grateful. And yeah, thank you. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Bye.